Everyone, uh, yesterday we were making a game, and where was we?
If you want to make a video game but don't know where to start,
We were like completed the
in this
episode
video we'll
4,
have a look at making.
and we will do
In this
episode
video we're gonna have
5
a look
now.
at creating obstacles and how to make things happen when two objects collide. Also, before we jump
Yeah, let's open our project. Oh, just it going to load much. Yeah. So yesterday we made this a player and a camera fixed with the player. And this will follow the player. Now we will oh, so what we'll do today? Yes, let's see what we'll do too.
into the tutorial, I have a quick update
Oh, why am I low? Oh, never mind. Let us start episode
for you
5.
guys. I'm really glad the feedback on this series has been so positive so far. I'm having a blast making it. If you don't follow me on social media, when you're watching this video, I'm actually on my first vacation for a very long time. Because of that, the recent videos and the next ones are all scheduled. I really tried to fit in all of the blanks while I was gone, but unfortunately I had to skip a video. That means that this Wednesday there will be no new video. However, there will of course be another how to make a video game this Sunday. Alright, enough rambling, let's get started. So if we select our player, we can see that we currently have a player movement script. And we could definitely go ahead and add our collision code to this script as well. But to make things easier to understand, let's go ahead and create a separate script. Let's hit add component and let's call it something like player collision. Hit new script, select C# and hit create an add. Let's double click the script to open it up in Visual Studio. Let's delete the two using tags up here and both the start and
Okay, let's make a player collision. Player and then add component. Player collision script. Then create an add. And there's the player collision. Now I have to remove the comments. Hey, where the heck is my cursor? What the fuck? I can't track my cursor, bro. Here is my cursor. I can view it here, but I can't freaking view it here. Okay, I got it. So I'm gonna remove this one, And all good. Now let's see what does he do.
and the update method. So adding code to colliding objects in
Okay, never mind. He deleted everything.
Unity is actually really easy to do. Just like start and update, Unity has created a function with a specific name that is called whenever two objects collide. Let's write void just as we would do with start and update, and then write on collision enter. Make sure to use capital letters the same way that I do, and that you spell this in the right way. If you do this wrong, Unity is not going to throw an error, it's not going to complain in any way, but it's just not going to be working. We can then open and close some parentheses and some curly brackets.
On collision, enter a function. Okay. While on collision, Shion, enter, and then bracket and the curly braces.
This now means that whatever code we place within these two curly brackets will be called whenever this object collides with something. So if we save this and go back into Unity, we can add our player collision script to whatever
Okay. We're gonna save this. Oh my god.
object we want. As long as the object has a rigid body and a collider, we can be sure that this code will be called. So to test this, let's just go ahead and throw a debug.log statement that says we hit something. Let's save this, go into Unity and hit play, and you can see now that
Okay. So debug. Okay, debug log. We come on to something. Yay! And then this one. Okay. Console. Turn it on. And wait, did it bump on something? Why did it? Wait, I still gotta make
we
something,
hit
I guess.
something. Let's save this, go into Unity and hit play, and you can see now that right off the gate, a message displays in our console saying that we hit something. And you might think that's a bit weird because we don't currently have any obstacles in our scene, but Unity
Yes, that's what
detects
I'm
collision
thinking.
between all objects. So what we actually
Oh,
hit here
oh, I got it. I got it. He detected. He detected the ground, that we hit the ground.
is the ground. So when we hit play and our player falls down, this message is displayed. So let's try and add an obstacle to our scene. We can go over here in the hierarchy, right click, go 3D object
Oh.
and then cube. We can then reset the transform of this object. Let's move it forward a bit. Let's put it at 1 on the y-axis. Hit F to focus on it and we can see that it's standing on our ground. It's currently totally white, so let's go into our project panel, right click, go create, material, and this one is going to be our obstacle mat. We can make this a bit darker and we can drag it onto our obstacle. We can also consider turning down the smoothness. You will notice the preview down here changing. The higher the smoothness, the more light will bounce off the surface. Let's just leave that at 0. We can now take this cube, move it forward a bit more, and give it a scale on the x-axis of about 2. We can rename it to something like obstacle, and you will notice this right away has a box collider. So all we need to do is add a rigid body as well. We can go ahead and increase the mass a tiny bit. This is a bit bigger than the cube, so let's set it to something like 2. And that should be all the settings we need to configure. Now,
What the heck it just did? Let me see. Okay, let me recalculate. What did he did? He was talking, then he added a cube, then he added a cube. Okay, then he reset the thing, and then it's brought forward, and this is 1. Walk, get into 1, bro. 1. Then we make it 2. No, sorry. Z axis 2. No, my bad. X axis 2. Yes. And then and then he added the rigid body. We had mass is 2. Then we need to change the color. Color is good, but I still want to change it. Create. What was that? Material. Obstacle mat. Color will be I don't know what the heck is this color. Oh wait, this color look good. What if I had this and this one? We are changing the name. This is optical mat. Brown mat. Optical mat. Okay, we will go for this one. And I guess all good.
Now if we go to our console, clear all the stuff we have in it, and hit play, we should see that we both collide with the ground and the obstacle object.
Okay. So we got to do we got the project and on it compound or something. Yeah, we got it 2 times. But what's happening? Oh, okay. Okay, good.
However, we need a way of keeping track of what we hit, because we don't want this to trigger whenever we hit the ground. To do that, we go into our script and we tell Unity we want some information about what object we hit. We can do that by inserting a bit of code within these 2 parentheses. Let's write collision. This lets Unity know that we want to gather some information about the collision, and then we need to give that information a name. Again, we can choose any name we want here. I'm just going to type collision info. Then down here, instead of simply writing we hit something, let's display what we hit. To do that, we can replace our text with collision info. We then use the dot to access different parts of this information. You can see that we can get information about the contact points between the colliders, stuff like the impact force sum, and other handy parameters. The most important one for us is that we can get info about the collider we hit. So let's write dot collider, and again we can type dot and we'll get all of the information about that collider. Here we can access the rigid body of our collider, the material of our collider, or just display its name. So by accessing the collider within collision info and the name within the collider, we should now display the name of whatever we hit. Let's see if this works in Unity. So let's
Okay. So wait, yeah, it's working. I was like, if my work is working or not. So, oh, here we go, and here we go. We got to remove this. We got to go here on collision info, collision, and we name it collision info. Why does it use this thing? collision, collider, co- collider, and name. Okay. Collision info, collider, name. Okay. So let's first see what happens. Then we will see the video of Brekai. That what will he say? Okay, so we hit the ground. We hit the ground, then we hit the cube. Good.
Within the collider, we should now display the name of what is found and then obstacle. This makes it really easy for us to have
What the heck is obstacle? I didn't rename the name. So it's obstacle. Good.
different stuff happen depending on what we hit. We could write if collisioninfo.collider.name is equal to obstacle, and remember to put this within quotation marks. Let's then open and close the curly brackets, and now everything we write within these two curly brackets will only happen if the name of the collider that we hit is obstacle. Let's see if that works. Let's write a debug.log statement here saying we hit an obstacle. Again, let's save this.
Okay, so equals to obstacle. 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 Debug dot log. We come on to the
Head back into Unity and hit play, and you can see nothing happens when we hit the ground, but as soon as
okay. So boom. We bump onto obstacle. Now I will move the cube and then here we go. Yay. Pok.
we collide with the obstacle, it displays a message. In our case, it actually displayed 2. That's because we had 2 quick collisions with the obstacle. It was hard to see with the naked eye, but Unity actually detected it. However, most of the times we'll only see 1. One thing that we should correct about this piece of code is that checking for an obstacle's name is not the best way to go about things. If you create a larger game, you can quickly have hundreds if not thousands of objects in your scene, and searching through all of them can be really taxing on the computer. It also means that if we were to go ahead and rename the object, our code would no longer work. A much better way to go about things is using tags. Tags can be used to group objects together. So in our case, we could mark all of our different obstacles with an obstacle tag. To do that, we go up here where it says tag, we click untagged, and you can see the different tags created by Unity automatically. We need to go ahead and add a new one, hit the plus sign to create a new entry, and let's call this one obstacle. We can then select our obstacle object and change the tag to obstacle. Then in our code, instead of checking for the name, we'll check for tag.
Okay. Obstacle, untagged, add tag, list is empty. How can I write it? Make new one. Obstacle, save. You go here, then you go here, then you go obstacle, then you save this, then you go here, tag, again here, obstacle, now good, I guess.
This is much better because it allows us to create a bunch of different objects, and as long as they share the same tag, we can configure them in any way we want. So let's just make sure that this is working by hitting play, and indeed it is. Of course, displaying a message in the console isn't very exciting. What you should probably do is add some kind of end screen, or maybe just restart the level. Those are great things to add, but it's enough for a separate video. Instead, let's make sure to disable our player's movement, because right now when we hit the object, we actually just keep flying. Instead, we can simply go in through script and turn off our player movement script. To do that, we need to have a reference to our player movement script. Let's go into Visual Studio. And before our function, let's add a variable. Let's type public, then the name of our script, which is player movement, and then we need to give the variable a name. In our case, let's call it just movement. When we now save this and go into Unity, we can see that there's now an empty slot here. So by simply dragging our player movement script into that slot, we've now created a reference from the player collision script to the player movement script, and we've called this movement. Now in our code, we can replace our debug.log statement with movement.enabled, and we can set this to false. Again, let's save, hit play, and hit an obstacle. We can now see that our player movement script turns off. So that was
Okay, very good. So, we did.
Instead, let's make sure to disable our player's movement, because right now when we hit the object, we actually player movement script. To do that, we need to have a reference to our player movement script. Let's go into Visual Studio, and before our function, let's add a variable. Let's type public, then the name of our script, which is player movement, and then we need to give the variable a name. In our case, let's call it just movement.
Your movement. Okay. So, public movement and then movement. Okay. So, I guess we will get the movement here. Then we will drag player movement to this, and then we will set it to false. What was this? So whenever it will collapse,
When we're dragging script, place our debug.log state save, hit movement.enabled, and we can set this
okay, movement enable is equal to false.
to false. Again, let's save, hit play, and hit an obstacle. We can now see
Okay, so we got it. Let's track this, play transposition, and then play it. We're going, and then we bump onto it, and the player stops. Very good. Oh,
see that our player movement script turns off. So that was pretty much it.
on, and then if we enable it, it will go, and then it's off. Yes.
For this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. In this video, we're going to be making some actual gameplay. Here's what it should look like when we're done. Awesome, so let's get started. So what we're going to be doing here is pretty much creating a level by hand using a bunch of prefabs. This allows us to really easily create interesting levels and fine-tune each part of the level to a good difficulty setting. The problem with this manual approach is that you cannot have infinite levels. You're going to have a start and an end point. If you want to create never-ending levels, I really suggest you watch my live stream on creating a dodge the blocks type game. In that video, we randomly spawn obstacles from a few spawn points. However, making things procedural is a bit more difficult. It does require some code coding, and unless you are very skilled with it, it leaves you with very little customization when it comes to creating more deep and interesting levels. Anyway, let's take our obstacle and drag it into our project. What we just did was create a prefab of that obstacle. Prefabs are used whenever you want to have multiple objects of the same type. In our case, we want to have a lot of different obstacles in our scene. What we can now do is take this prefab from the project and drag it in anywhere into our scene. The cool thing is that if we now go to our obstacle and change our settings, say the size on the x-axis, you can see it updating on all of the objects at once. I'm just going to undo that. We can also edit one of these objects individually. Say select the first object here and change the mass. We can then go up here and hit apply, and it should now be applied to all the other prefabs. And we can see indeed the mass has changed on those as well. Remember, now pick the first object here and change the mass. We can then go up here and see that if we now go to our obstacle and change our settings, say the size on the x-axis, you can see it updating on all of the objects at once. I'm just going to undo that. We can also edit one of these objects individually. Say select the first object here and change the mass. We can then go up here and hit apply, and it should now be applied to all the other prefabs. And we can see indeed the mass has changed on those as well. Remember to always hit apply whenever you've changed something on the prefab that you want to be applied to the others. Again, I'm going to put that back to 2. And hit apply. The first thing that we need to do is extend our ground plane. Currently we can go for a little bit and then we're going to fall off. Of course there are ways of making our ground plane follow the position of our player. One common thing to do when creating endless runners is not actually move the player, but instead move all of the obstacles and environment pieces closer to the player as the game progresses. This way we can actually just have a stationary ground element. But in our case we want to have some cool physics, and that looks much better if we move the actual player. So I think the solution here is as simple as just scaling up the ground. Let's take the ground, give it a scale on the Z of say 10,000. Let's also move it over on the Z. Let's set that to 4,980. That should make sure it begins in about the same place as our player. Now of course we can begin sketching out our level. There are a few things we can do to make that easier for us. The first one is getting the right view in the scene view. Notice how we have different axes up here. We can actually click on those to shift our view to that axis. So let's click on the Y. However, we're currently in perspective view. If we click on the center cube, we can switch to isometric. This flattens our entire scene and allows us to set up our level in kind of a 2D view. You can also go up here and disable stuff like skybox, fog, and flares. You can toggle all of those on and off by simply clicking the environment here. So I'm going to toggle those off. The grid I'm actually going to leave in here, but if you go under gizmos, you can disable that as well. We can also take our ground, go up to layer, hit add layer, and we can add a new layer called something like ground or environment. We can then take our ground plane and assign that layer. Now if we go up to the layers, toggle, we can hit the log next to the environment. This now means that if we deselect our ground, we can't actually select it within our scene. We can still select it in the hierarchy, of course, but it makes it so much easier to select the objects we want in our scene. So now we can delete our 2 obstacles here, take the make that easier for us.
Okay, so we gotta do this.
If we move the actual player. Z mouse in right view the view to that up, set up our level and flares. Grid, I'm going to toggle all of those on and off by simply clearing the environment here. So I'm going to toggle those off. The grid I'm actually going to leave in here, but if you go on the gizmos, you can disable that as well. We can also take our ground, go up to layer,
Ground with the layers, add layers.
hit add layer, and we can add a new layer called something like ground or environment.
Let's say environment. What the fuck?
We can then take our ground plane and assign that layer. Now if we go up to the layers toggle, we can hit the log next
Oh,
to
now
the
here it is.
environment. This assign that layer. Now if we go up to the layers toggle, we can hit
Oh, no, I gotta find it. The UI is changed.
अब दोनों रिटायर ले लो जाना तुम रात को 1 तारीख को
Bro, what the
1 तारीख
heck
को एग्जाम
is
खत्म
locked already?
न्यू ईयर में एग्जाम
How the heck am I supposed to lock it?
नाउ C3 है ना
What the fuck? I can't lock it. Never mind, let it like that.
hit the log next to the environment. This now means that if we deselect our ground, we can't actually select it within our scene. We can still this now means that if we deselect our ground, go up to layer, hit add layer, and we can add a new sign that now means hierarchy 2 up.
वो आने वाला नहीं है वो प्रोग्राम का नाम है पूल पार्टी है ना मूवी वॉचिंग वैसे फंक्शन का न्यू ईयर का नाम what is this वो आने वाला है तो क्या मजा आएगी देखो क्या आया पाए नहीं आता वो वरना नाम पे oh my god गाने पे ऐसे मैंने पर ये फोटो का
Sound.
मेरे दोस्त है ना खुद में
Oh, oh, okay. So
वो भी
it's
देख
here.
सकता है
Can't move.
अभी पागल मत मिलता है कल
Okay, but
लाइव दिया
ignore.
ऐसा क्यों मिलता है
Obstacles here, take the first one and kind of move it forward a bit. If we drag on the green square here, it allows us to move it only in the X and Z position. You can of course go ahead and move these in freehand, but I prefer doing things on a grid. We can go edit, snap settings to configure
Okay, so this and then go here.
मैंने तो कुछ नहीं बन वाईफाई वगैरह कुछ नहीं। मेरा दोस्त भी वहाँ आ रहा है ऊपर यही है क्या वाला वो ये नहीं पा रहा उसमें पंखे नहीं लगे वॉशरूम में
Bad.
लास्ट वाले
Selecting this. Wait.
और रात भर
Here how objects snap to the grid. I'm going to put 2 on the X, 2 on the Y, and 2 on the Z, and just leave scale and rotation as is. We can put 2 on the grid. We can go Edit, Snap Settings to configure how objects snap to the grid. I'm going to put 2 on the X, 2 on the Y, and 2 on the Z, and just leave scale and rotation as is. We can just close this now, and that means that if we now move this object and hold down Control, it's going to snap to every 2 units. Alright, so let's begin with this in the center, and then press Ctrl D or Command D if you're on the Mac to duplicate the object and move it over while holding down Control. And you can just repeat this process. So you can see I've created a
Okay. So now we gotta make it. Okay, just let's make the level, I guess. Bro, I got the label, but let's see. I go and then pause. Fuck. It's not stopping the movement. Use the script for the movement. Layer. It's been turned false. Okay, so where is the problem? It was working, now it's not working. Why? Fuck. So this is my first error of this journey. Oh fucking god. I had the script. I have a mouse player movement. Player movement script. And then uh, player collision. Player collision. 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 Oh, wait. That's the problem. I got the solution now. First problem, first problem solve obstacle. 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 I have to do it. Never mind. Let's do it. That's my problem, so I'll have to fix it, I guess. Okay, so I got the code. Now let's see. Player, player movement. There you go. Get touched and player movement is off. Okay, good. I got the first problem. I solved the first problem. Let's go and watch the next.
Tiny bit of gameplay elements here. Of course, I did this very quickly, and I'm not always the most creative when it comes to level design, but you get just how easy it is to place obstacles into our scene. You should of course pump this up with a bunch of different kind of or go beneath. There's plenty of opportunity, and the best thing about it is just how easily we can playtest it. Let's try and hit play and see how difficult this level is. The first thing that I'm noticing is that my controls feel really slow. Now that's not really a problem with the level. That's more a problem with our movement script. So let's see what we can do to edit that. Let's select our player and double click on our player movement. Now currently, in order to move our player forward, we're adding a force. And I think that works fine. But when moving to the right and to the left, it feels very non-responsive. That's because when adding a force to an object over time, it slowly builds up momentum. And when we then change direction, we have to wait for the object to build up enough force to do so. And this is where force modes come in. Unity actually allows us to specify in which way we should add a force. And we do that as a fourth parameter. First we have the force on the X, then we have the force on the Y, then on the Z, and finally we have the force mode. So let's put a comma here and let's input force mode dot. We can go through and read about what the different forces do. The standard one is force, which adds a continuous force to the rigid body using its mass. The one that we want is velocity change. This directly edits the velocity of the object and it completely ignores its mass. So make sure to add this to both of the add force statements. Let's now save.
Force mode, velocity change, player movement, force mode, velocity change, force mode, velocity change.
And hit back into Unity, and I know by experience that when using velocity change we need much smaller numbers. I think something around 100 should be fine. So if we now hit play, we can try that out. It already feels much more responsive, but I think it could be better. One thing we can do to make the movement feel more snappy is up the drag. Drag is basically air resistance. So the higher the drag, the more quickly our object is going to be stopped by air. That also means that we need to amp up our forces in order to move at the same speed, but it should make everything feel more responsive because the object is quicker to slow down. So let's up the drag to something like 1. Let's leave the same sideway force. Let's actually put our forward force up quite a bit. Let's try it out at 4000. If we now hit play, everything feels so much better. I think this
I don't have drag here. What the
is
fuck?
a good forward force, and I
Rigid body drag 1. Rigid body, motherfucker, I have nothing here. Linear damping, angular damping, use gravity. Oh my god. Mine fucked actually. His is 4000 and mine is 800. 100. Okay, let's see what happens now. Oh. What the fuck? Eh? What just happened? That just snapped through everything. No.
think our controls feel really fluent. By the way, a cool short
Oh. Oh. Too much, too much, too much. Too much. Too much. Too much. Oh my god, hell no. Let me see the code. What's the code of this? Sideways view 500. My level is kinda too hard.
Shortcut is that you can play the game by hitting Control P or Command P if you're on the Mac. So the level already feels pretty fun. However, it's not too hard to see that this particular part is a bit too difficult. So let's just go in here and maybe add a tiny bit more distance between the first obstacle and the next one. And we'll do the same thing with these. Let's try it out again. Much better. The final thing that I wanted to add in this video is fog. Currently we can see all of the objects.
Huh? Why the fuck is my game glitchy? Oh, the heck? I'm going to fall in my game. Fuck. What if I remove this? Till the time. That is, I can't mess with too many things now. I don't know much. I'm going to crack everything if I do that. Oh, I got it. Oh, I got it. I got it. I got it. Oh, good, 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 good. I can do this. I can clear my level. Oh, almost. No, it's very hard. It's very hard. It's very hard. I admit it. It's very hard. Get the fuck out of here. You also get the fuck out of here. You get the fuck out of here. You get the. No, 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 no. Oh my god. Now it's little easy. Can cross my level. I can cross my level. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Why? Why do I fall? Too much. Again. No. No, I gotta control it. My game is too hard. Fuck. Ooh, 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 ooh. I can do it, 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 I can do it. Got it. Got it, got it. But the problem is, it's the character is too fast. It's just going through the object. And I wanna remove that. How can I do that? I saw somewhere he increased in mass or something like that. Never mind. Let's keep it like that for now.
No matter how far away they are. That's not too pretty, and it also makes the game feel a lot less interesting. The neat thing about this game is that it feels like the obstacles are coming out of nothing, and you never know what to expect. Well, we know, but the player shouldn't. So let's go undo Window and select Lighting. We can then take our lighting panel and dock it over here by the inspector, and maybe give it a bit more space. There are a bunch of settings here to play around with.
I forgot where the heck was
Stuff
that.
like the let's go undo Window and select Light. There are
And I have to find it. This Unity changed it so much. Layout, multiplayer, uh, text, text format, random, name, lighting, right?
a bunch of settings here to play around with. Stuff like the intensity of our ambient light, how to calculate shadows and reflections, and finally we have the fog. Let's go ahead and enable that. Let's also expand it. This allows us to set a color of our fog. You can choose pretty much any color you'd like and definitely get interesting with this, but I'm just going to go ahead and use the color picker to get the color of our background. That makes it feel like everything is blending in towards the sky.
The fog. I can't see fog. Fucking I can't see fog. Where the heck is fog? Okay. So what did you select?
We can then up the density a bit. I'm gonna gradually get in. This allows reflection stuff here by. So let's go undo window and select lighting. To expect, well, we in this game is that it feels like the obstacles are coming out of nothing and you never know what to expect. Well, we know, but the player shouldn't. So let's go undo window and select lighting. We can then take our lighting panel.
Yeah, I got it. Environment.
And darken over here by the intensity of. Let's go ahead and enable that. Let's also expand.
Environment. What the fuck? Good. I never knew why the heck you selected that. Density. Okay, my game is very hard. I'm making soul game. Making the hardest soul game ever exist.
It. This allows us to set a color of our fog. You can choose pretty much any color you'd like and definitely count. That's something. Press play. We can see that our game actually starts to feel like a game. The level is currently really short though, so I definitely recommend creating something experiment. That was pretty much it for this.
So we got the video and then let's play. Yeah, okay. Okay. So now we can't play our own game. What the fuck? Oh god. Never mind.
This video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a future episode. Remember from devassets.com. Links in the.
So how long the stream is? 1 hour. Maybe I guess 1 hour is good for today.
Since the last video, a lot of you guys asked me how you can create some kind of score for the game. So that's what we're going to be making today. It also gives us the chance to play around with some Unity UI. Exciting stuff, let's get started. So let's begin by getting a bit.
Okay, so I guess I'll make some levels later. Maybe if I get time, I will come to stream today again. But for now, I will go. See ya.